Backyard Professor Chess videos, I have yet another interesting lesson on training us to learn how to recognize the imbalances on a chessboard and the effects of those imbalances. This particular example he has is from Jeremy Silman's book, How to Reassess Your Chess, 3rd edition. It's from a game by Botvinnik and Kahn in Leningrad in 1939. Botvinnik was the world champion. He, not at this time, but he was a very scientific chess player. And I think this example is a wonderful training exercise to teach us what to look for. Now I want to give you this up close so that you can take a good look at that, because we're going to explore Silman's analysis of the imbalances. Botvinnik is white and Kahn is the dark pieces. White has, by definition, a bad bishop, right? The central pawns are on white, but he has done what you need to do with a bad bishop. He's got it on the outside of this pawn chain so that it is a very useful bishop here. It's extremely active. This actually makes white's bad bishop a superior piece to the counterpart here. You can certainly see he's up the board, he's directly influencing the king's side, and he's vastly superior to that bishop there, right? And black's bishop is a good bishop, but it's certainly inferior to this superior bad bishop. So, the idea here, though, is that white is winning this battle of the bishops, but there's more to it than that. We have to analyze the other imbalances in this particular position to figure out what to do. One of the things you look for when you're discussing imbalances, when you're playing your game and thinking, what are the imbalances? Look at the material. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pawns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pawns. Okay, we each have 6 pawns. Each have a queen. We each have a rook. We each have a bishop. We each have a king. I should hope so. Oh, I set this up wrong. That rook's not supposed to be there. Sorry. There, that's better. So material, now that I've corrected my egregious error, the material is even in the game at this point. It's very important to understand, because that's one of the imbalances, is who has more material. Well, the material is even in this particular instance. Now, white has a superior minor piece according to its greater activity. So in this instance, we know automatically that black would be very happy to exchange bishops. And that would be to black's advantage. So one of the strategies for white is to try not to change bishops, right? Now black has a weak pawn on b6, right? You can see that what makes this pawn weak is there's no support pawns on this side, and this pawn is already past the b6 pawn. So this is a target for white. True, it strengthens this pawn, so you don't want to attack that pawn. You want to go for the weakness, which is the b6. And it is on an open file, which is wonderful, and white can come over here and start taking pressure on that pawn, right? Now, white has a weak bishop, or a weak pawn on a3. So for black, he has a target here, and white has the target here. So he's just pointing out how to analyze a chess position, no matter what chess position you're in. I'm going to do a lot of this with you because it is so instructive. It's been helping me in my chess games. Well, white has the advantage of space on the king's side because of his f5 pawn here, right? He is further up the board, so his kingside space is better. He's kind of pushing black back, right? He's restricting him. And white can take control of this b file easier than black can. By the very next move, he can have the b file controlled, right? And of course, that's a useful way to attack this backward b5 pawn, of course. Now, black has a little bit more difficulty taking control of the a file to attack white's weakness because this a8 square is covered by this bad but very useful bishop. So while white can certainly zip over here if it's his move and control and start attacking this pawn, let's say black's bishop was there, black still can't do the same because of the bishop. So this is kind of an interesting look. This is why you want to look at the various imbalances. And what this will do is it will help you assess, what do I do next? Instead of just making a waste of time move like, oh, I don't know what to do, so I'm going to go ahead and push a pawn. That will lose your game. If you don't know how to see the imbalances and where the weaknesses and strengths of both you and your opponent are, this could lose the game. You don't want to just move randomly. You want to have a plan, and you want to be able to do a strategy and keep your eye out for tactics. Now, another thing he says that we should note is that the black bishop is getting in the way of his rook here on the 8th rank. So white's material is easier to move around. He has what they call greater mobility, and it gives him a chance of creating concrete threats, and this in turn puts black on the defense, right? This is what is called taking the initiative. It's a very important concept. So all of these facts put together tell us that white's game at this point is the better game, right? Well, the next thing you want to do is you have to figure out what side of the board to base our play on, right? We only play on the side of the board where a favorable imbalance or the possibility of creating a favorable imbalance exists. Well, on this side, on the queen side, white does have chances now, doesn't he? He truly does. This weak pawn on b6, plus the superior white bishop, aims in this direction. We have access to the rook on that file, so we can play on this side. There's no question about that. The other interesting thing for white's situation, thanks to his f5 pawn being here, backed up by the rook and his superior bishop, is he also has a chance to play on the king side as well. Not just the queen side, but he also has the king side. The center, which is normally the most important part of the board, of course, is you can't play here because it's locked. This pawn is here, and this pawn is here, and they're not going anywhere. And this f5 pawn, because the queen is blocking it, it's not going anywhere. This pawn on c4 is blocked by the pawn on c5. None of the pawns are going anywhere. So there's not going to be a lot of activity through the center here, right? So you have to go to either the queen or the kingside wing. The advantage for white at this point is he can pick whichever wing he wants to go to. It's a very cool idea. Now, for the sake of illustration, he says, let's do the rook to d1. And now he says, for the sake of illustration, black doesn't make a move. Of course, this isn't legal, but now what if we did this? Queen to d3. Now you're beginning to see some interesting things, and there's more power still in the center, right? So this is another option, another plan of an option that you can do because you have greater mobility, greater access to open files in the center or open files on the B file. That's quite a diagram to explore and analyze, isn't it? So, his idea here is that you don't want to just play for cheap traps either. You want to make your best moves, and you always want to make sure that you know your opponent is going to make his best moves, whichever move that is. That way, you won't depend on your opponent making a mistake, right? You will depend on your own good play. You always want to play the move that does something positive for your position here. You want to improve your position with every single move. And he says, let's say you want to make a move like this. He says, in order to know whether you're improving your position every time or not, ask the question, what wonderful thing does my move do for my position? And if you can't see something wonderful that your move does, then don't make the move. In this instance, what wonderful thing does it do? Oh boy, it grabs an open file, it attacks one of the weaknesses, right? As opposed to this. What wonderful thing does that move do for my position? Nothing. So don't move it. Or this. What wonderful thing does this do for my position? Nothing. In fact, that's a horrifyingly stupid move. You wouldn't want to do that. You see the difference here? It's a very helpful rule. If you want to push your queen to here, what wonderful thing does this do for my position? When you ask that question, then you can see a possibility. That's okay, it's not the best thing. I personally think this move here is really excellent myself. That's probably where Botvinnik would have played. I don't have the rest of the game because Silman is basically training us to get in the right frame of mind to analyze a chessboard position with all of its imbalances of material, space, usefulness of pieces, etc. And then he's saying, based on those imbalances, what can we begin to do? Right? That makes sense. So this is really kind of a wonderful illustration of that practice. Let me show you something else real quick. Never mind, I'll show it to you in the next video. I'm going to encourage you once again to grab any of Jeremy Silman's books. Now, realistically, a lot of you have asked which book would I recommend first, second, third, and so on, because he really does. In some of his books, he's taking you all the way up into strategy thinking past the 2000 rating, and that's beyond most of us who watch these videos, right? Get his book, The Amateur's Mind. That is a very good book to start with. His Reassess Your Chess 3rd edition, the one I've used in this video, is a deeper book. He expands the information from his Amateur's Mind in his 3rd edition of Reassess Your Chess. And then get the 4th edition of Reassess Your Chess. And then get his End Game course, his complete End Game course. These 4 books, I believe, can help us get to the 2000 level rating and beyond. What he does that is so valuable is he gives us a proper foundation of thinking about the game. Thinking about how each piece moves. Thinking about where it is logical to move the next piece. Where on the chessboard do we play? The wings or the center? He also explains in the best way I've ever found any teacher so far, the why of it. He not only shows you how, but he explains the why. And I love that. I finally found somebody who helps me understand the concepts so that no matter what board position you find yourself in, you know how to analyze the strength of a piece as opposed to its weakness. This bad bishop is a strong piece right now because he is on that side of the pawn chain. If this bishop was right there, look how that changes the entire nature of that board. Just one different location. Now it's a very bad bishop. The queen is getting in the way of that bishop. He's going to have to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves to get that bishop back. In the meantime, black's going to be doing something. Here, white has all the chances. Here, white could very well lose this game. Isn't that interesting to see this kind of an illustration? Silman does things like this throughout all of his books. That's why I keep touting him. I hope I'm not boring you by doing that. I want to show you more and more, and then because I'm figuring it out, I'm able to put that into my games. I'm improving. That gets me excited, and so I can share that with you to show you it's possible. Hey, I'm telling you what, if I, as just a regular Joe, if I can do this, you guys can. I promise. I promise. As you learn how to manipulate the board, as you learn where to put your pawns to make sure your pieces have maximum power, let's say the board was like this right now. You absolutely know, because you have access to one of black's weaknesses here, that you have a target. You also know that if you can close off this center and keep him from expanding, you know you want to push that pawn there to support your bishop and to lock the pawn. You don't have to guess. There's no guesswork. Well, let's see. I don't know what to do. You know, maybe I better move my king more out of danger. Your king's not in danger. You're wasting your time. You see how that works? This is so important. It's so cool how he does this. You know one of two good moves. Well, you know 3 moves here. But before you start an offense, have your position as strong. What wonderful thing does that pawn move do for my position? Really? It blocks his pawn. It supports that bishop. That's what wonderful thing that silly little pawn move does. And then let's say black says, oh well, I've got to come here, because you know black wants to come over to here. Now you know what your next move is going to be automatically. Right? Don't you? Continue blocking off the center, giving your bishop an absolutely solid, rock-solid, central, radiating influence. What wonderful thing does that pawn do for my game? Wow! This is the fun thing about learning the imbalances, about learning how each of the pieces move when they are strong or when they are weak. It makes a difference in the game, doesn't it? Truly. So anyway, that's the lesson for today. Thanks for watching my chess videos. I hope you're getting something out of them. I get something out of them every time I produce these. You know, I love doing this because I love the game of chess. It's fun. It's interesting. You get to meet new people, make new friends, online and in real life. I've got a tournament coming up in September, later in September, that I'm gearing up for, and I'm really excited to play in this tournament so that I can meet some of my old friends, Jeff Rowland from the Idaho Chess Association, Corey Prudbaugh, several of the different guys. It's going to be fun to wrangle with them, to beat them in games and to lose some games. I'm not going to go in order to lose. It's going to be a tough tournament. It's going to be fun though, and I'll share some videos about that. So, happy checkmating. Happy studying. And I'll see you in the next video.